It's a misty morning, a lot of misty rainy mornings we've been having. Atmospheric rivers, creeks, streams, bomb cyclones, and old fashioned gully washers. It's God's green earth. Might as well be out and in it, huh? And so, my hot punk girlfriend from that country up yonder and I decide to go on an adventure. Slip and slide down the sloughs over the bridge across to that kingdom in the East Bay called IKEA Land. And we journey along the yellow brick road within, admiring Scandinavian thriftiness and adopting curios that we toss into our modified combo yellow bag shopping cart with a smug, aren't we smart, aren't we absolutely provident? And we pause our scavenger hunt at the trailside Swedish restaurant who has hung posters telling us, translating for us the word smorgasbord, and who offers up mounds of meatballs on rice. And whilst I'm sipping a mighty fine cup of joe, fresh and hot out of the big industrial kettle, complete with a squirt of half and half from a reservoir the size of Rhode Island, I reflect on my prior day's urban adventure whence I had pranced down the hill, through Chinatown, around Wash Square, up and over Telegraph Hill, down the Vallejo steps, and around the Embarcadero to the ferry building. A terminus for ferries, buses, streetcars, subways, and pedestrians driving curious and bored minds to seek and acquire all sorts of wondrous goods and services, wines, oysters, exotic mushrooms, fine teas, chocolates, breads, burgers, and fries, as well as the pâtés extracted and blended from the livers of various waterfowl and swine. And there's coffee. There's Red Bay coffee. It's standard, just another version of Pete's, Starbucks, whatever. You got your coffee drinks, you got your espresso drinks, you got your pastries, and the people behind the counter seem nice. If maybe a little stressed or anxious, perhaps because it gets fucking busy. Perhaps because of the pressure of identity-based business models, I don't know. But it's consistent. I've never been overly impressed, but never dissatisfied. It's same old, not too unlike my fine sipping brew over here in the land of IKEA. And then there's Blue Bottle, sitting up there atop their wannabe throne in the middle of the ferry building. They spouted a line of devotees that wiggled out into the greater ferry building crowd, and even though several years ago I wrote a horribly scathing review of their arrogant little outlet in the Mint Plaza because I had asked for a dry cappuccino, and the fine young cannibal behind the counter had replied they make them one way and only one way because I don't know, it's what they do best. And even though I had vowed then and there to never return to any establishment that displayed that broken Carolina Blue Bottle, I said to myself, hey, why punish an obviously woke vendor of fine coffee with my mighty and oh so influential pen because of the actions, attitude, words, hurtful though they might have been, by an improperly trained barista? I said to myself, hey, perhaps I've harmed them more than they deserve, and for penance I will wait in this slow snake of a line in the middle of this damp warehouse, teeming with COVID, influenza, and probably several varieties of herpes, because the rep, the street cred, the accolades bestowed upon this sacred sanctuary of the roasted bean have only grown since my last encounter. I mean, dudes in puffy vests and Allbirds, and chicks with Nike caps and Lululemon full-body tights love this shit, right? Or maybe it was because I had enjoyed a nice big fatty as I sauntered, as I strolled, and maybe I simply fell into the first line that I had stumbled upon, rolling the dice and hoping it was the one that led me to what I wanted. But that didn't matter because every one of us in that line, either purposely or accidentally, we waited and we waited, even though we all secretly knew, even though we were all in on the joke, even though each of us had before witnessed the lack of clothes on this emperor, we keep trying to give it a shot. Hey, maybe they'll get it right this time. Maybe I won't feel like a schmuck for waiting this long. Maybe it will all be worth it, and maybe, just maybe, I'll make a friend. and we can discuss coffee and all of its wondrous attributes just like we do over glasses of fermented grape juice. And so the line crawled, it meandered, and the various news feeds on my phone began to repeat themselves with each cycle freshly amplified to the degree that resistance to clicking was futile. And after I finally reached the counter, it slapped me right in the face. That sudden awareness, that instant cognition, that cold splash of water, that little electric shock that comes from standing in a puddle in front of the Coke machine. I mean, I had to go home, have my punk-ass girlfriend tie me up, strap on the Red Ball, apply hot wax, nipple clamps, and use me as a punching bag, telling me afterwards that she never did it because, oh, sorry, babe, you must have been high. That never happened. I mean, I must like this shit. I must enjoy punishing myself to the point of ecstatic amnesia. God, I hope my kids don't find me dead, naked on the floor, a noose around my throat, just another erotically asphyxiated regnet. But I must. I just didn't learn. This place was still staffed by incels and young women who were either very, very angry or dripping with over-the-top syrupy gratitude like it had been imported from Marin on the ferry. And everything was sparkly clean, even though one could see instances of a little emotional grime in the corners and crevices. Crusty bits of pastry flakes scattered about like confetti, perhaps symbolizing millennial angst. But this time I went simple. A pour-over, please. And it was followed by that expected but still insipid "which bean do you want?" question. Like I was supposed to have been reading the King James Version of the Coffee Lover's Bible while in line, even though I could. But I played along with the banter. It's expected. No. So I replied, "Oh, well, how about something a little darker, please?" And the drill down began. "Which dark roast would you like?" And he pointed over his shoulder with his thumb like he was the fat cop with mirrored glasses in one of the Smokey and the Bandit movies, rolling his eyes like one of those amusement park clowns, never moving any other muscle in his face. And hey, I am just going to say, I'm going to remind all of you that I've run the coffee circuit before. I've sipped and slurped everything from diner sludge to that juice squeezed from the rich, robust bean that comes out of that rodent's ass in Bali. I've sipped with Italians and Frenchies and Israelis and Arabs and New Yorkers and crackers from South Georgia at the Waffle House and bank executives that fly business class and relish the thought of urinating on passengers in economy class. So I don't need some chubby Ken doll who really should invest in a mustache grease company if he's going to use so much of that axle grease to get all Thurston Howell III up in my face when it comes to the coffee I order. I asked him, "Please leave room for cream," which for some reason drove him to clench both his teeth and his sphincter in disapproval of my desecrating the house of the holy. And then I clenched my teeth and sphincter as well as my total of $5 and change came up on the magic screen. In it, the machine, not the Pillsbury Doughboy, asked if I wanted to add a tip atop this obviously reasonable amount for 8 ounces of caffeinated nectar. But Puff Daddy was on to the next customer. Not a "hey, we know you have a wide selection of coffee purveyors to choose from, and we're so happy you selected us." Not a "may you have a grateful day." Not a "thank you," not even a fucking snivel of the nose. I was totally ignored like the 60-some-year-old man. I am so clicked. No, thank you, because such gratuities may be deserved by the many, but not by Doughboy. Please. And so I waited, and I waited, because I know one cannot rush the drip by drip lusciousness that peeks through that organic, unbleached brown coffee filter, willingly surrendered by ancient redwoods along the NorCal coast, drops forming on the outside of the paper like the morning dew, dripping softly, oh so delicately and deftly into the waiting mug below, just like Grandpappy still out on the edge of the swamp. And then I spotted my cup, full, waiting to be gently lifted and handed to me as if a communion offering from Archangel Michael himself. But Dowie was off to the side, regaling half the counter staff with lurid tales of his previous night's cosplay experience, and did not notice. And so I continued my wait. And I continued my wait. Didn't say anything because, hey, they are the craftsmen here. They are the artisans. Until one of the non-cosplay grateful young women brought it over, exclaiming with a most delighted and proud of herself, "Here's your coffee." And I displayed proper gratitude, genuflecting and backing out, moving slowly away from her gaze. And then I turned and walked out of the ferry building out into the plaza that faced downtown. People buzzing about, commuters, tourists, skateboarders, panhandlers, and a couple of mandatory street preachers. I was ready. I needed my caffeine. I needed the bitterness to smack my stomach. I needed acidic love. I lifted the little lid from my cuppa and took a sip of what turned out to be absolute dreck. That looked up at me, gave me a big wet raspberry, and laughed. Like the incel's pretend girlfriend, it was on the cool side of lukewarm. It was as weak as your daddy's vodka that you've been nipping at and replacing with tap water. Didn't even have that little bitter kick of gas station coffee. It didn't even reach up to the low bar set by a pour-over from Phil's. And so I threw it out and relit the fatty for my walk back up the hill. Another 30 minutes of my life wasted in the name of half-assed coffee. So I got to tell you, I just got to say that as I sit here sipping, luxuriating on my IKEA dark roast here in the kingdom of IKEA, 2 of which I got for $2.40, and that includes refills. As I sit here dipping my little Jafar pastries into this lovely brew, I just can't help but to smile that grin of lessons learned. I hope that newfangled trash can San Francisco bought enjoyed that blue bottle swill as much as I enjoyed my IKEA dark roast. And may I go at least another 5 years or so before I step foot in another Blue Bottle Cafe. Shitty coffee, good coffee, and all that.